All right. All right. Welcome back to House of Common. We are so glad you're joining us here. We are ecstatic at the amount of feedback that we've been receiving over the last number of weeks. So from the boys, we just want to say thank you so much and hi. Say hello, boys.
What's going on, y'all?
Hello, what's going on?
What up?
It is what it is.
What it is.
What it do?
What it is.
What it do, baby?
Yeah, so many of us were you guys were really stirred by the Ahmaud Arbery case and conversation, which is, of course, far from over. And so we'd like to encourage you to continue the discussion in the comment section below. Or if you're looking at this on Instagram or Facebook, feel free to leave a comment there as well. Yeah, we also want to encourage you guys to follow us on the social media platforms to stay up to date with the future conversations that are happening. And of course, any sources that we have, anything that we need can be found in the description below for your viewing pleasure. All right. Although today in history marks the day in 1918 that Sunday baseball was made legal in Washington, D.C., today on The Fade, we turn our attention to a very important headline that marks progression, not only for African Americans and Canadians, but also for humanity in a small but significant way. I'm going to pass the torch to Andrew to take us through this event. Andrew.
Yeah, for sure. We had some exciting news this week. We were told that Nicholas Johnson, he's a Canadian born from Montreal. Give it up for the Montreal boys. We got one there. Right up in the right there. So we got some great news that Nicholas Johnson, he is the first African Canadian to be named the valedictorian of Princeton University. So that is some exciting news. Now, I got to say something first, though. I'm a little bit excited, but at the other sense, I'm a little bit confused or a little bit kind of like frustrated because Princeton has been around for 274 years. 274 years. They first let their first black person in 1948. And so you think of that time, and this is the first black person to become valedictorian. Not only that, in the last 20 years, so I look back the last 20 years, they've only had 3 minorities become valedictorian in the last 20 years. So I don't even know what the other, years before that look like. But at least the last 20 years, only 3 minorities. So it kind of got me thinking about just black people in education and how we walk and how we have to try to do so much to get to that one pinnacle point where so many others get to that pinnacle point. So I just want to leave that open, see what your guys' thoughts are. Maybe Bart, if you start us off on what you were thinking with that.
Yeah, first off, I was extremely excited because it's about time. We really want to celebrate that idea that we as a people can arise to some of the highest levels of accolade in academia and education, and it sends a strong message to other people who are gifted, other people who are pro-education, that love to learn and want to do continued education. That's huge, but it also sheds light to the system. And whenever you take a look, like you said, Andrew, to an institution that's 200 plus years old, you start to understand maybe some of the history is a little bit not savory as the victory that we're seeing in the press. So I took a deep dive in terms of like, okay, where does all of this fit in? How does this work? And the one thing that I gleaned from Malcolm Gladwell is he talks about the capitalization rate, and that's kind of just like the percentage of people able to reach their potential. Like that's even more important when you think about it than like a GDP or a growth rate or anything like that. And as a society, especially, I'm going to speak specifically to the American society. As a society, we have not seen that, even though that's kind of what makes it interesting, is that that's kind of what makes America unique from any other country, where they say, come here because we're the land of opportunity. But in turn, it's not always the case when you face different types of opposition. And there's a whole lot of history and stuff about that as well. But the one thing that we have to realize is opportunities are few and far between for people of color, for minorities, and we only get normally one chance. You know what I mean? Like, so for somebody who is in the upper middle class, if they were to get arrested with drugs and speeding, they can get a second and third and fourth chance if they're from the right family, from the right race, where people of color especially do not get that chance. So for somebody to make it to this level of education, that means that there were thousands upon thousands of others who just did not meet that potential. So one of the things that an article that I found adjacent to this was about these two economists who wrote an article called "The Missing One-Offs," and these are people who don't make it. And the pool, so about 15, 20 years ago, all the Ivy League schools dropped and said, listen, we're looking for people of color, minorities, poorest of the poor to make it into school so we can help them, and we're going to give them free education, a free ride. But they were only increasing by 10 and 15 people every single year. 10 people, 15 people out of 20,000 who are applicants who are actually making it into school. So what's happening is they're saying the pool is super small. Look, the pool of intelligent, gifted, academically thriving people of color is small, but in turn they were only looking in junior and seniors. And like I said, we only get one chance. So if somebody is gifted when they're young, let's say 4th grade, 5th grade, if they also have that social charge, meaning like, I also have to worry about my mom who's a cokehead, and I also got to take care of my little brother, so I can't go to the public school, and I also have to do all these things in the nicest schools and not in the poorest areas. So there's all these different obstacles. And like I said, you only get one chance. One obstacle can deter an entire opportunity from somebody who is disenfranchised, where in turns, if somebody gets an opportunity who is upper middle class, they get more and more and more and more chances. They already live in the neighborhood where the school is at. They already have money to go to those places, preparatory schools and all these different things. So this is where the system, it exposes that. So we see that, you know, when the Princeton is saying, listen, we're so proud that this has happened, we also have to look backwards and see, okay, this is your roots in slavery. This is your roots in how you've accepted people to come to your school. And we're now seeing the pattern of why we're not seeing a more diverse graduating class. And now we're waiting this long into 2020, 200 years to see our first African-American or African-Canadian rather, valedictorian. So it's very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, like it's interesting, especially when you look at the history, like you said, they're steeped in racism. Like their first few presidents all had slaves and endorsed slavery. Not only that, when you think of just who has gone through those doors, somebody like Michelle Obama has gone through those doors. And you would think, okay, maybe somebody like her could be valedictorian, but yet we're waiting in 2020 for a valedictorian. I think, Kareem, you were next. So what do you have to say?
Sorry, can I just jump in really quickly? I wanted to just make sure that we all understand that traditionally the valedictorian is the person with the highest GPA. So when we talk about these things, it's not just why can't Michelle Obama? Well, if Michelle Obama didn't score the highest, then she's not really eligible to become the valedictorian. Go ahead, Reed.
Yes and no. Hold on, though. Yes and no, because it's not just the highest GPA. It's voted on by the faculty. Right. And so and I agree with you, but there's multiple people, that you could choose from, that it's not just a grade thing. It's also a voting thing.
True. But then that would like the pool that they're drawing from
is smaller.
Is much smaller, which Michelle Obama may not have made that pool.
Sure. Yeah. Kareem.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue is not just Princeton, though. Like, the issue is the amount of kids that we get of color that are getting into Princeton. We got to recognize that for people of color to even get to the opportunity of getting into Princeton, there's so many things that hold the people of minorities from even getting to that, getting up to those highest levels of education. And so what happens then is that the pool within Princeton itself is lowered. And so the chances of us being able to have somebody being able to step up and get to that place where they have the grades and they meet all the check marks to be able to become the valedictorian are slim. The pool for every other race is a lot larger, and then you have a small pool of individuals that have the ability to be able to get in there. If you go look in terms of the system itself all the way back to the education system, elementary school education system, the high school education system, everything is stacked up against people of minorities and those from marginalized communities to be able to even get to those levels. And so that itself plays into the idea of why we haven't been able to get, or this is the first time we're hearing somebody of color being able to achieve something like this. The other thing that you have to think about is that people of color oftentimes don't even think that opportunity is there for them.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
right.
People of that are minorities, the mindset of getting to the level of getting to Princeton, Harvard, all the best Ivy League schools, that's just not an option to them. And so again, that limits the pool of individuals that get there. And so all of that plays into why we haven't had anybody up until now. And so yes, we've had some that have been able to get there, but that pool has been very, very slim. And so that it's not just what I'm saying, it's not just Princeton's issue, it's a societal issue of being able to give those opportunities for people to get to that.
Can I just finish what you just said? I just got one quick thing. In the article that I read, they said two things stop Black people from making it in higher education. Number one, they have to have an advocate. There's no clear-cut path that they can do it on their own. Somebody higher up has to kind of be your Sherpa. And number two, all the best schools are not in the poorest places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually have a different take, just seeing how his whole background is. And something that had a great interest to me was the fact that both of his parents were doctors. So one thing that I've seen in America, especially with African Americans, is even I think ever since the recession hit in 2017, many African Americans have struggled to, their children have not done as well as maybe the prior generation. So it's good to see in this type of situation, okay, even though his parents were both doctors, this guy took it to the next level. And, that's big ups for Nicholas being able to do something like that. And also this guy was involved in chess. He also played the saxophone. So he was involved with certain things that has allowed him to be at the top of his class. So to me, it's just a great achievement.
Yeah. I think looking at his background, right, you got two parents from Caribbean islands, and it's kind of that same story that most of us have of people who've migrated, right, immigrated from the islands to North America. And it's really cool to see him take advantage of his situation. Now, we can't say that for everybody. We know lots of people who haven't, and some people may say we have or we haven't, depending on where we fall. As I've been thinking about it and doing a little bit of reading, I've been wondering about what you guys are thinking about when it comes to some of the devaluing or like discrediting of his amazing achievement. To say, like, some people have said that this is a power move by Princeton to say, hey, let's be the first one to do this. And I was kind of like heartbroken when I read that. I also wonder, Jason, maybe you can shed some light on this. Like, does this do much for Black American kids? Because it is a kid from Canada who has family that are privileged or who have earned privilege from the West Indies. And is that a hero to them? Or is that another mark of he looks like us, but it's other than us? Like, that's achievable for them, but not necessarily achievable for us. I mean, any thoughts on those things?
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in quickly, I definitely think that that's something that even when Barack Obama became president, I think that was one of the first times that people said, many of us was like, wow, like we could actually be somebody. And even with him, I think you have some kids who might be in the ghetto right now saying like, wow, this guy is the cream of the crop. He's the top of the class in an Ivy League school. And I can do that same thing. And I can be that same person. And I can have pretty much almost every employment opportunity open up for me once I get out of here. So yes, I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at some of the numbers, and I think up to about 5 years ago, only 9% of people in Ivy League happen to be Black. And so you have this 9%, and he's the top of the top of the top. He stands alone. He's in the same conversation as like the first Black president, right? He's going to be remembered in history. We're all talking about it. And so more thoughts on some of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you go?
Sure. Yeah, Cal, I want to, I want to maybe not disprove, but maybe just shed some light on that idea of like he looks like us, but he's not really actually like us. And I think that in a sense, if we can kind of call that the black excuse, in terms of there's always going to be a small minority, or there's always going to be a group of us, of black people, who are going to find some excuse as to why we cannot do it. And I think that excuse is just intrinsic to maybe their personality, maybe their upbringing, and the belief system that they bought into, that this is completely unattainable. I'm not saying that it's not harder. I'm not saying that it's not more difficult, but then you're also going to get those kids in the hood who are just driven as all heck. That, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's books that they get or if it's basketball sneakers, but they're going to overcome, and they're going to use the tools that are given, and they're going to be able to look at people like this and see that as an example. But just to shed some light on some numbers, man, I got some numbers too. 60 to 2.2 in 1940, 60% of employed black women worked as domestic servants, and today the number is down to 2.2%, while 60% hold white-collar jobs. 44 and 1 in 1958, 44% of whites said they would move if a black family came next door to their neighbor. Today the figure is down to 1%. In 1886, in 1964, the year Civil Rights Act was passed, only 18% of whites claimed to have a friend who was black. Today 86% say that they do, while 87% of blacks assert that they have white friends. And granted, like this isn't perfection. This isn't the promised land of equality that we're shooting for in all of this. But the needle is moving, and so whether or not even if this is a power move from Princeton, it still moves the needle for us. It still moves the needle for equality. And when I say us, I don't mean just black people. I just mean in terms of like equal action for all people, equal opportunity for all people. So I don't know, man. I think that this is something like we need to celebrate this. And I think that sometimes we get so inundated with the narrative that black people are so oppressed that we're seeing, on our Facebook feeds, we click on one video and suddenly there's another 10 videos that are linked of another black guy getting shot by police or by white supremacists or whatever it might be, or, racially charged altercations and stuff. But I think that this is a story that as black people, we need to celebrate. We need to be able to say, like, this is something that is great that is happening for our people. And we need to celebrate more stories like this. So we want to hear that. We want to hear more of that going on.
That's good.